Hello, this is Jamie from Shamrock Girl World, and today I'm going to show you how I continue to grow yellow dragon fruits from seed. This is a continuation of the spring and fall 2019 update where I documented the growth of the yellow dragon fruits from February to November 2019. In this second update video, we'll see how the yellow dragon fruit seedlings grow while they are in a winter greenhouse from November 2019 to March 2020. We'll start on November 17th, 2019, which was where we left off on the first update video. At this point, the plants have been in the greenhouse for about 3 weeks. I took the dragon fruits and other plants outside to take a look at them and to rearrange them in the greenhouse. I wanted to see which plants needed to be transplanted or staked. I staked the dragon fruits on November 9th to encourage them to grow upward. This weekend, I bought more metal supports for my tallest dragon fruit plant, which was over 4 feet tall. The smaller dragon fruits were back in the greenhouse. I moved them up so they wouldn't brush up against my clothes when I walked inside. I also hung some of them on the front table. It's not the best spot, but they'll trail down to the ground. The small dragon fruits got a little bit of light from one of the heat lamps. They'll be okay for light for now. I potted the trailing dragon fruit and removed some of the segments. I wanted to train this plant to fall down rather than training it to grow up on a trellis. It's surprising that all of this was one plant. On November 30th, it was unusually warm outside for the last day of November. The high for the day was around 85 degrees. I opened the vents to air out the greenhouse, but the temperature was still above 90 degrees inside on the sunny day. The light for the small dragon fruits went out. I suspected something happened to the hardware of the lamp, but not the light bulb. The medium-sized plants were hanging down in the front and touching the ground. They're doing all right for being under the table. The plant that I was training to trail down was growing and had new vertical growth over the past 2 weeks. Today, I noticed new dark-colored growth on the larger dragon fruit plants. Some of them were forming buds on the tops. I also saw that their tray would need a liner so it could capture water. Trapping the water could encourage new growth. I was surprised to see the growth after the plants have been in the greenhouse for 1 month. Last week on December 7th, I rearranged the tray containing the dragon fruits and my jackfruits. I put a used soil bag as a tray liner to capture and hold some of the water. Today, on December 14th, I noticed some new growth on several other dragon fruit plants. Some of them have new segments. It was the most substantial growth that I've seen so far, and the plants have been in the greenhouse for about a month and a half. Some of the plants were trailing off against the greenhouse wall. I'll need to support them so they don't touch the potentially cold cover of the greenhouse. On December 29th, the dragon fruits were looking great at the 2-month mark. One plant was still growing little buds. I had to support one of them because it was falling over. It was actually the tallest plant. The 2 that were sitting on the ground needed to be transplanted so they could have nutrients to grow. It was clear to see what parts of the plants grew while in the greenhouse. The 2 plants that were growing along the cover have grown too. Today, I began thinking about making a dragon fruit trellis for the plants once they're out of the greenhouse. I wanted to get a large pot or 2 and use a tall piece of lumber to train the plants up on the wood. That way, I wouldn't have to stake them individually and they'll have room to grow in the soil. The plants will be 2 years old in February, so I'd want them to grow as much as they could into and over the next year. The small dragon fruit plants haven't had light on them for several weeks. I also noticed that the segments were growing upwards towards the light. But as long as they were growing, I was okay with what they were doing. I couldn't wait to see how much they'll grow. On January 19th, it was currently 55 degrees and the high was expected to be at around 57 degrees. The low for the night would be at around 31 degrees, so it felt more like winter. But thanks to the sunny sky, the greenhouse was over 80 degrees while it was vented. The dragon fruits continued to have more growth on the tops. There were new buds on 2 plants, and one plant had a large segment on the top. On February 2nd, I decided to transplant the largest 2 dragon fruit plants. They were in small containers and were the only 2 plants sitting on the ground. They've grown a lot over the past few months. I wanted them to get more growth while they're getting winter protection. And pretty soon, they'll be too tall for the greenhouse. On February 16th, it was 80 degrees in the greenhouse. The high for the day should be in the upper 70s. The weather was fluctuating from being cold in the morning to warm at night. We were also expecting a cold front later in the week. Since the plants have been in the greenhouse for 4 months already, the plants might think it's spring or summertime. Some of them might be adjusting and expecting more rain and moisture than what I was giving them since I was only watering the plants once a week. The thick growth on this dragon fruit was new. It wasn't hanging like it was last week, but now it had 3 new segments. I think the dragon fruits really love the greenhouse, especially the humidity. Some were growing new segments on the tops, and one was growing upwards towards the light. On March 1st, the dragon fruits were continuing to grow new, thick green segments, especially the drooping plant. The 3 new segments were getting thicker and growing upwards towards the light. The other dragon fruits were growing up and everywhere in the corner of the greenhouse. They needed more room to grow, but I was happy that they were flourishing better than I've ever thought. It was feeling more like spring outside, and the weather continued to get warmer. The nightly lows were still a little dangerous, but it was getting warmer in the day, such as the lower 80s. The greenhouse had to be vented very often because it was too hot during sunny days. On March 15th, the weather had been consistently in the 80s, so it was almost scorching in the greenhouse. I had to unzip and vent out the door completely. It still got to 90 to 100 degrees in the greenhouse even when it was vented. So today, I decided to kick some plants out. But I noticed that the dragon fruits were still growing and may like the humidity and heat in the greenhouse. I also wanted to leave the dragon fruits that were under the table. I noticed that they were standing up and reaching towards the underside of the table. Today was a big day on March 29th. The weather had been warm for the past 2 weeks, and the highs have been in the 80s and even in the 90s. Some of the plants were out of the greenhouse, but today I've decided to take all the plants out and dismantle the greenhouse. It was going to get hotter and unsafe in the greenhouse, so it was safe enough for the plants to go outside in the Texas spring weather. I took a final look at the dragon fruits before I took them out of the greenhouse. They had so much new growth while in there. Some had new segments growing on the top, and others had prominent branches growing towards the sun. Of all the exotic fruit trees in the greenhouse, I think the dragon fruits love the humidity and heat the best. My future plans is to give the dragon fruits and all of my plants some Epsom salt to encourage leaf growth and to make the plants greener. I plan to put the dragon fruits in full sun since the spring weather and sunlight was mild enough for them. I'll need to transplant the plants because they were still in small containers. At the same time, I'll need to vertically support the plants since they were growing precariously in the greenhouse. I'll have to find tall supports for each plant or train them on a fence or something sturdy. It will depend if I need to buy support sticks or make some from tree trimmings. The hanging dragon fruit plant grew a lot over the months. It was even growing into other containers. I might also transplant it into a deeper pot. This will be an interesting plant to watch since it's not going to grow vertically like the other dragon fruit plants. I hope to make dragon fruit trees or trellises for the plants. Now that the largest dragon fruit plants are over 2 years old from seed, it's time to prepare them to one day bear fruit. It'll be a lot of work because of the dry Texas summer heat. It will also depend if I can get trellis and other gardening materials during the early weeks of the quarantines and shutdowns. But the dragon fruits needed to be trained to grow, get thicker, and fed to one day bear fruit. The dragon fruits took to the greenhouse like champs. They started as small to moderately sized plants and turned into tall, thick cacti. They remained healthy throughout it, and during the warmest periods, they had a lot of new growth. They were the happiest plants in the greenhouse. and they'd be happier in the Texas spring and summer. I can't wait to see how much these plants will grow over the year. I plan to make a follow-up video of the dragon fruits from late March to late fall 2020 before the plants go back into the winter greenhouse. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to learn more about how to grow dragon fruits, check out my Growing Dragon Fruits playlist. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell for more videos about exotic fruits, growing exotic fruits, gardening, outdoor crafts, and more. Thank you.